Today we're talking about JFK's assassination, and this story is super famous. But not just because the guy was the president, it's because there were tons of sketchy things about the event that don't really add up, which has led so many people to come up with so many theories. Now at first, everyone thought it was Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone, but it turns out that the CIA had been keeping secrets. The government lost the footage from one of the videos that may have solved the crime, and the trajectory of the bullets didn't quite make sense. Yeah, this is one hell of a roller coaster, so hold on and sit tight. On November 21st, 1963, JFK and his wife Jackie left on what they thought was going to be a 2-day trip to Texas, but things didn't go as planned. So they were supposed to visit 5 cities on their trip, which is so crazy to me. 5 cities in 2 days is a lot, and Dallas in particular was a city with a lot of political tension. Like a month earlier, a US ambassador was physically attacked during a speech. So of course, JFK had to go there. On the second day of his trip, JFK started in Fort Worth. He gave a short speech outside in the rain and then spoke at the Chamber of Commerce. He then flew to Dallas on a 13-minute flight. But at that point, why didn't they just drive? Like, to go through the hassle of flying, if it's just going to be 13 minutes, is a bit much, in my opinion. Well, after JFK landed, him and his wife Jackie got in the back of a limo for their motorcade ride through Dallas, where they were supposed to end up at the trademark for a luncheon, but JFK ended somewhere else. Okay, so this is random, but the word luncheon is so unnecessary to me. Like, can we just call it a lunch and leave it at that? So this motorcade route was a bit weird. Like, it had a bunch of turns that could have been avoided, but the Secret Service chose it for the best building and crowd views, which sounds like a good idea at first. Everyone is coming to see the president, so they might as well make it worth their while. But they also left a perfect view for someone to take him out. Anyway, JFK was in this motorcade going through the city on a weird route. He was in the backseat of the limo with his wife. The governor of Texas was in the second row with his wife. A Secret Service agent was in the passenger seat, and the driver was obviously in the driver's seat. I'm like really good at this. And the rain had stopped, so the top was down too. So JFK was cruising in this convertible limo with his girl by his side and crowds of people cheering him on. So you could say he was like #thriving. But right around 12:30, as the limo passed the Texas School Book Depository, 3 bullets were fired. They were aimed straight at JFK's limo. One missed, the second supposedly hit JFK in the neck, and then hit the governor in the back, and the third bullet was the fatal blow in the head for JFK. The driver sped to the closest hospital, and at 1 p.m., JFK was pronounced deceased. Oh, and I bet the driver and the hospital staff were so stressed out, like they literally had the president's life in their hands. No big deal. Also, that had to be so traumatizing for Jackie to have been front row seat to her husband's execution. All right, so JFK was smoked out with bullets, but where were they from? And who was the person who fired them? Well, that afternoon, the police thought that they had the perp and arrested him. That was quick. It was a guy named Lee Harvey Oswald who was just hired at the book depository. The police found his rifle and 3 shell casings on the 6th floor of the building that afternoon. The shell casings matched the bullets that hit JFK and the governor, so obviously Lee fired at JFK on the 6th floor, right? Well, that's still a hot topic. Here are some other reasons why the police thought it was Lee. The guy served in the Marines where he earned his sharpshooter qualification, so he could definitely aim at the president from a building. But he was actually undesirably discharged, which makes me wonder what he did to get kicked out like that. I don't know, but something about the word undesirable is leading me to believe he found himself in some deep shit. After getting kicked out of the military, Lee moved to Russia where he tried to get his citizenship, but he was denied. He moved back to the US and his Russian wife and daughter and bought a rifle with a telescopic sight as well as a revolver. So he had the weapons, and apparently the dude loved Russia and hated everything about America, which could be a motive. But wait until you hear this. Lee literally tried to slay a veteran a few months before the whole JFK thing. Yeah, he took the same rifle to an ex-major general's house, stood by the fence, aimed through the window, and fired at the guy. But he missed and fled the scene. So he's clearly got the guts to do it to JFK, and his aim must have improved too. So at this point, all signs are leading to Lee. He has the skill, temper, weapon, motive, and the guts to do it. And Lee was also under active surveillance by the Dallas FBI, so they must have thought he was sketchy too. But the weird part about that is that the Dallas FBI never mentioned that Lee was under watch to the Secret Service. But then again, the Secret Service didn't let the local FBI know about the motorcade route. Have they ever heard of communication? Because this sounds like a toxic relationship to me. And now I'm thinking the local FBI was in on the assassination too. Why would they not tell the Secret Service? And why would they even let the guy work at a government building in the first place? But Lee wasn't just after JFK, because 45 minutes after the first incident, he took out a police officer with a revolver. And this one is definitely him, because the bullet casing near the scene matched the handgun that Lee had on him when he was arrested. Several witnesses also saw the whole thing go down and said it was Lee. So at this point, we know Lee smoked out the officer, and it looks like he was also responsible for JFK. Everyone in the country now knew about it and absolutely hated Lee. The morning after the big incident, Lee was being transferred from the county jail to the police headquarters when he was knocked out by a bullet by a nightclub owner named Jack Ruby. You know what they say about karma. Lee was taken to the hospital where he took his last breath, and it was the same hospital where JFK had passed away. This is also wild to me. Like, it's crazy that JFK was assassinated in the first place, but for his alleged Terminator to be taken out 2 days later and pass out at the same hospital? That's just creepy. Jack was convicted for snuffing Lee and sentenced to the electric chair, but before he got there, he got a blood clot in his lung and passed away. Oh my God, everyone's like dropping like flies. Okay, so back to the story. JFK is gone, investigators think Lee did it, but Lee is now gone, so he can't confess or anything. But the whole thing was caught on camera by a guy named Abraham Zapruder. He went to the motorcade that day and was recording when the bullets were fired. The footage, which is nicknamed the Zapruder film, was a 26-second long silent video shot on an 8mm camera. That became a key component in solving the case. And this footage was so valuable that the government ended up buying it from the Zapruder family in 1999 for $16 million. It's now preserved in the National Archives. $16 million? That's a fat stack of cash. I bet the family is so glad that Abraham was casually filming the whole thing. But now I'm thinking he could have been filming for a reason. Was he in on it with Lee? A week after the assassination, LBJ, aka the ex-vice president and now president, opened an investigation to get down to the bottom of JFK's termination as well as Lee's. It became known as the Warren Commission, and almost 1 year after JFK's big farewell, the findings were made public. It was an 888-page report that basically said JFK was assassinated by Lee, who acted alone. It also concluded that Jack acted alone when he took out Lee. 888 pages is insane. And I wonder how big the font was though. Like, maybe they just made it super big and spaced out to take up more pages to make it look like they had their act together. I mean, I did that when I was in college. I made my periods bigger and I made my font bigger. It's a way of life. That's how you create more pages for a report. Well, even though there was an 888-page report that said Lee did it with 3 bullets and he acted alone, people started coming up with other theories. First of all, the bullet mapping was a bit sketchy. In the Warren Commission, investigators believed the first bullet missed and that the second bullet hit JFK. This is called the magic bullet theory. Why? Because officials say the second bullet didn't just hit him. They thought it went through the president's neck and into the governor's back, where it traveled through his chest and through his wrist before ending up in his thigh. Then they thought the third bullet was the blow to JFK's head. I don't even see how that's possible, but now I think I know why the report was like 888 pages. And get this, the supposed second bullet was recovered in the governor's stretcher in one piece. Oh my God, like how would it stay intact after apparently going through all of that? So one theory is that Lee did it, but he was working in conspiracy with Jack, you know, the guy who knocked him out. In this theory, people think that Lee and Jack were in on it together, but that Jack ended up taking Lee out to keep him quiet. Don't you think that they would have come up with some sort of agreement before assassinating the president? Like, if they really were working together, they had to have talked about keeping everything on the down low. But then again, if Lee was already in police custody, he was screwed and could have very well have spilled the tea about Jack to shorten his sentence or something. So in the grassy knoll theory, people also believed Lee didn't work alone, but they thought there was a second marksman involved who was on the nearby hill in front of the motorcade. Remember when I said that the Zapruder film was the only footage from the assassination? Well, there was another clip recovered that showed the event from a different angle. In this video, there appeared to be someone on the hill in the back. People who saw this clip also said that over by the hill, there were puffs of smoke that looked like they were coming from a firearm. Well, the guy who recorded this clip sold it to a news company in 1963 who was supposed to get it back 25 years later. But after the news company got the footage, it was turned over to the government for the Warren Commission. It was reviewed again by the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1978. And after that, it was never seen again. Yeah, They literally lost the footage. Like, no one can find it. How does the government lose one of the most important video clips to ever exist? Did they not make a copy? And how were they able to hold on to it for 15 years and then lose it after that? I'm starting to think that they're hiding something. Well, in 2015, the granddaughter of the guy who filmed the clip actually sued the government for $10 million for losing the footage that she believed would prove that there were two marksmen. And I bet that girl was livid that she missed out on the $16 million the other family got. Okay, so that clip is a bust, but there are some other bits of evidence to back up the whole theory that two people fired at JFK. There was a crowd member from that day who said he was hit in the cheek with a bullet fragment, and on the sidewalk where he was standing, investigators found a mark that looked like it was made from a bullet. The witness believed the fragments were from the second round, which goes against the whole magic bullet theory. So if we're going with this belief, there may have been more than 3 bullets, and if that's the case, they couldn't have all come from Lee's rifle because they only found 3 cases on the 6th floor of the book depository. Also, the governor and his wife even said themselves that they thought the bullet that struck him was separate from the one that hit JFK. Earlier, I had mentioned something about the House Select Committee of Assassinations. This group was created in 1976 to investigate the slaying of JFK and Martin Luther King Jr. It was formed because the Senate found out that the CIA had purposely held back information from the Warren Commission investigation. What is going on with all this hidden evidence? And from the CIA, aren't they supposed to be working together? This is getting so messy and the government is looking real suspect right now. So this committee reviewed a bunch of evidence about JFK's shindig, and in one of the audio clips, they were able to use a new acoustic research technique to determine there were the sounds of 6 different bullets firing, which would mean there was definitely another person and firearm involved. Why is this getting even more confusing as time goes on? So there are 2 different videos, but one is missing, and now there's an audio clip that sounds like there's 6 different bullets when everyone was saying there's only 3? I need a break. Another popular belief is that the Cuban government is responsible for the whole thing. This is because the information that the CIA held back from the Warren Commission is that they were trying to assassinate the Cuban leader, Fidel Castro. Wait, what? This whole CIA keeping secret thing is blowing my mind. And if it really was their plan to take out Fidel Castro, that would be a strong reason for Cuba wanting to strike JFK. Thanks, CIA. And if the Cubans didn't do it, some people think the Russians did. I mean, there was clearly tension between Russia and the US because of the Cold War. And Lee also lived in Russia for a while. But what really drove this theory is that Lee went on a trip to Mexico City a few weeks before JFK's big departure, where he was at the Russian embassy. What you doing down there, buddy? If you're not already confused, there are plenty more theories. Shall we continue? Next up is the mob. Yay! The Chicago, Miami, and New Orleans mob all claim they were responsible for JFK's assassination. Well, clearly at least 2 of them are lying. JFK's brother, who was also the Attorney General at the time, was against organized crime, so people think he could have pissed them off to the point of taking out JFK. I mean, the mob does have a reputation of slaying people who get in their way. Also, Jack, the guy who snuffed Lee, was a nightclub owner who was theorized to have some sort of connection to the mob. But like all the other theories, there's no hard evidence to prove any of this. Alright, so here are a few other theories, as if there aren't enough already. LBJ got JFK assassinated so he could be the president. Ooh, and there's the T. The CIA hired Lee Harvey Oswald to do it, which we know the CIA is sketchy enough to do it. A suspicious man in the crowd with a black umbrella was somehow involved. They called him the Umbrella Man. In this one, people think he either fired darts at JFK with his umbrella or used it to signal the marksman. Well, the Umbrella Man ended up coming forward to the Senate committee and said his umbrella didn't launch any darts, and that it was actually used as a form of protest against JFK's dad. I have so many questions, but at this point, I feel like I'm just gonna leave that one be. And last but certainly not least, some conspirators believe Ted Cruz's dad was responsible, which Trump hinted at in a 2016 interview. Now Trump is getting involved? Okay, that's where I tap out. I'm done. I knew this whole JFK thing was a hot topic, but I never knew how many theories there actually were. And it looks like everyone else is just as confused as me, because it's estimated that a total of 42 organizations, 82 assassinations, and 214 people have been accused in different JFK theories. Now, is it weird that I kind of want the Umbrella Man one to be true? It's just serving me badass Mary Poppins vibes, and I'm so here for it. And this story has more twists and turns than the pretzels that I made. How great do they look? And maybe eating one will help with the headache I now have from all these crazy theories. Thanks for watching.